Hey guys, this is UBR Tech back with another video. Today's video is going to be how to swap out your stock trigger for a flat trigger for the P365. So the things we're going to need to complete this will be a 90-degree pick, and if you don't want to use one of these, you could also use needle nose pliers, 3mm punch. This right here is a tool to clean out the gas port for a scar. So I'll be using this. I'll leave a link in the description in case you're interested in getting something like this. But for what we're trying to accomplish here, if you don't have something like that, you could just use these two things that are laying around the house most likely, which is a paper clip or some type of threading needle. So before we get started, I'd like to ask everybody to please subscribe. Every subscriber helps. So the first step we do is we make sure that we're safe. How we do that is we push this button right here, releases the mag. Then we're still not safe. We make sure that we check the chamber to make sure there's nothing in there. Push forward with this hand, pull back with this hand, and you can see we're safe. Next thing we do is we push up and hold up on the slide lock right here, and then we pull the slide to the rear. Then we push the takedown lever to the 6 o'clock position. Then we pull the slide to the rear and follow it forward like that. Set this aside, and the next thing we do is we take out this pin right here. So you could just take the 3mm punch and just push this through just like that. Now mine comes out really easy. If yours doesn't come out easy, you'll need an armor's block and a hammer. So what you would do is you would set this over one of the areas like this so that the pin can go downward, and then you would take your punch, hold it over here, and you would tap this out. But mine comes out real easy, so all I'm going to do is put this over that pin and push this out just like that. So the next step is to remove the FCU right here that's inside the grip module, and how you do that is you grab it from the rear and pull upward just like that, and just pull that out. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this pin and we're going to kind of slide it like forward towards you, and we don't want to remove it too much because it's holding all this stuff in, and if you remove it too much, then this piece right here, right there, that will fall out, and then you'd have to try to get that back in after you're done everything. So the way I'm going to show you how to remove everything, I'm going to try to do it with the least amount of parts to be removed. So this pin starts here at the top and it ends here. So there's two levels. So there's one right here, and then it comes up higher over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the 90-degree pick underneath the lower part, and we're just going to slowly push it out like that. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that the lower step right here is lined up with this right here. So it's going to look like that, and that should be good enough. You also want to check to make sure that this is still in place, because you want to make sure that this pin is still holding it in, and it is. So the second goal here, right, after we've slightly pulled out this pin, that bar that goes from here all the way over to here, this piece right here is inside this little notch of the takedown lever. And you can see as I'm moving this takedown lever, you can see it's moving that bar. See how it's moving that bar? What we need to do is we need to remove this bar so we could take out this takedown lever. So how we do that is we make sure that this is loose. It's not like all the way pushed up. And we kind of push. We're going to take the bar and we're going to slightly push this way because you don't want to bend it. So everything that we're doing, just be gentle. Don't try to force anything. So we're going to push just like that. You can see how it moved outward. And then what we're going to do is we're going to try to pull up just like that, and it goes up and out. So see how it's out. And then we're going to pull it outward again until the back part comes out just like that. You can set that aside. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to take the takedown lever and we're going to put it to like the 7 o'clock location, and this comes right on out. Set that aside. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to take the trigger spring right here, and we're going to remove that. So let me show you how this spring connects. So the spring goes all the way from here, and it goes in, around here, swirls around, goes over here, goes through this way, and it ends up on this side right here. So the two connection parts for this spring is here, which is this bar, the trigger bar, that goes all the way over here. And the second part is right here, which is part of the mag well. Okay, and if your spring is too long, you'll notice like it's scratching your mags. So we're going to remove this spring, and how we remove it is with the 90-degree pick. You could put the pick right here, and then you're going to pull downward to pull this part of the spring out of this hole right here. Or you could do it with the needle nose pliers. You grip over here and pull it downward, and it comes out that way too. You want to have your palm on the back of the trigger, so this way the trigger doesn't get pushed back like that. And again, depending on which one you prefer, if you do the 90-degree pick, you just pull it down, down and up just like that. If you don't like using the 90-degree pick, you could use your needle nose pliers. But everything, again, just be gentle. You don't have to manhandle anything. So now that we have that removed, you can see that the trigger bar is able to move now. And so the next step is to remove this pin right here for the trigger that goes all the way to this side. And this is where I was telling you would need something really small to get in there. And see, this thing just barely gets in there, and this is really thin, because if you try to use like a 1/16 punch, it's too thick, it doesn't go in there. Okay, so you want something thin like this, or a thicker needle would work as well, because this is what I used the first time I did this. Take this piece, go into this hole, and push this through. You could see the pin comes out real easy. You don't really need to use much force at all. Take this pin out just like that, set that aside. So now that we have the pin out, now we're going to remove the trigger bar. And how we do that is we move the trigger forward like this, and then we can pull downward, and then once this side is free, we push the trigger back, and then we tilt the trigger bar up and take that piece out, and then the trigger comes right out just like that. So now at this point, you would swap out your trigger. So let's say you had the curved one, you would swap it out for the flat one. We're going to put everything back together using the flat one, because that's the one I want installed. Okay guys, the one thing I want to point out, that this is really loose, this disconnector, and it can fall right out. So if it does fall out, it only goes in one way. The thicker part up here goes into the groove like this, and it goes back in just like that. Your trigger bar will actually be underneath it, and that's what holds that in. So it goes like kind of underneath like this, and it holds that in. So without that trigger bar there, this will fall out easily. Okay, so before we put everything together, you could wipe off this area and put some new grease in this area. I've already done that, so I don't have to. Before I put the trigger back in first, I want to show you that this circle right here is going to get latched onto this piece right here of the trigger. And you can see how this kind of sticks out. All right, so that nub is going to go right in like this. All right, the nub that I just got done showing you, this nub is going to go into this hole right here. This piece right here is going to go into this area right here. So this side and this side are going to go in here and here. Little nub right here where my thumb is, that little nub is going to go in here, in this area right here. And once you get that piece over there, you're going to keep the trigger straight up. We're not going to put the pin in yet. Take this hole, and we're going to kind of put it into an angle like this, and it's going to go underneath, and it's going to get hooked onto that little nub that I was showing you earlier. The trigger can be pulled back a little bit, so this way it gives you a little more room, and then it goes underneath, just like that. So now that we have the trigger bar latched back onto the trigger, you can see that it moves back and forth. Also, it's underneath this silver piece, so it captures the silver piece like that. The next part is to put the pin back into the trigger. And so this hole right here, we take our pin and we slide that on in, just like that. And we push it all the way until it's flush, just like that. And then there we go. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this side of the trigger bar is underneath this disconnector, just like this. Okay, we're going to make sure that it's flush underneath there. So this way it's in position so we can put the spring back in. Okay, so one side of the spring will go in through this area right here, this hole, and then the other side will get latched onto the trigger bar right here. You can see that hole right there. You can see where I'm putting the punch. It's underneath the hole, so you can see that's where it's going to go, but it's going to go on this side. Take our spring. We're going to put it through the hole right here, just like that. It lays down, and then what we have to do is we have to compress this spring right here. We have to compress this spring and get it latched into this hole of the trigger bar. And so what I like to do is take the 90-degree pick, kind of hook it on, and then we're going to kind of compress it and lead it into that hole. Now, one thing I have to say is that sometimes things don't happen as easily as you want it to. Just take your time, don't rush it. So before we compress this spring, we're going to make sure that the trigger is as forward as possible, so this way the trigger bar is pushed back as far as possible, so this way we don't have to compress this spring as much. So before we start compressing this spring, there's two areas, like I was saying before. Make sure that this part of the spring is in this little notched out area right here, which mine is. As you can see, it's all the way around, and then it gets into this little area right here. We want to make sure it stays there, and then once we know that is in place and we're pulling the trigger in the forward position, and then the trigger bar is pushed far back like that. So let's try it with the 90-degree pick. We're going to pull this back, keep pulling back, and then we're going to push downward just like that, and then it goes right into the hole. So you can see that the spring is in this hole of the trigger bar, and that goes all the way around and then through this area like I showed you before, and it hooks into this little notched out area, just like that. Next, we're going to install the takedown lever. This part right here gets inserted to that circle right there, just like this. Put it in the 7 o'clock position, right about there. Make sure it goes to the other side, and that's it. Now, I'm going to point something out that I've ran into myself after doing this multiple times. Sometimes when you put this in and it's in the 7 o'clock position, the takedown lever can go too far in. And so right now, it's too far in. And how you know is you can't move the takedown lever. It's locked. So what's happening here is this piece right here is part of your takedown lever, and it's hitting the trigger and part of the FCU. In order to fix this, you want to pull the takedown lever outward just slightly, so just about like that, and that's very slight, as you can see. And now you can see it's loose, it's able to move the way you need it to, and you're good to go. So that's just a little side note in case it gets locked up when you do this. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install this bar. In the very first few times I did this install, this was like the hardest part, but I found a way to install this, and it's super simple. This is how I do it. This piece right here, okay, that little part of the claw is going to go on the left side of that silver piece in there, right in there, that little silver piece. It's going to go on the left side right here, right? It's going to look like that, just like that, okay? But I'm going to take this back out because there's more that needs to happen. So this piece right here, this piece is going to go underneath this little notch right there. And then the third thing is this has to go into the takedown lever. There's like a little opening right there. That circle piece has to go into this opening of the takedown lever. So all three things has to happen at the same time. I'll show you how I do it. This claw goes on the left side of that little silver piece. And then you're going to put the bar behind the takedown lever. Keep the takedown lever in the 9 o'clock position like that. And then what you're going to do is, once everything looks like this, you're going to put your finger back here, all right, where this little claw piece was inserted first, and you're going to push outward like that. Now if you noticed right here, this bar is pretty much about to fall into the opening for the takedown lever, and it's almost underneath that little notch. There you go. I just tapped it a few times and it went right in. It went underneath the notch and fell into the takedown lever hole. So what I'll do is I'll do it one more time just so you can see what I'm talking about. Take the little claw, insert it right in here like this. Take the bar, put it in behind the takedown lever just like that. Then we're going to take our finger and we're going to push the back part of the bar outward like that. That's probably the extent of how far you want to pull that out. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take, I'll show you how easy it is. I'm just going to use the punch. I'm just going to tap that downward and it falls right into place. That is it. Then you're going to take this pin right here and you're going to push this in, because that's the pin that we took out slightly. And there you go. The bar is put in place and everything is back together. Now the only thing you have to do is put this back into the grip module. So the trigger is going to go into this hole right here, just like that, and it's going to be on an angle like this. And then once it's down, push down on the rear, you'll hear it click. Take your pin, and it doesn't matter which side you put in first, put it into this hole right here. Push it all the way in. Again, mine goes in and out really easy, so you could tap yours in if you needed to. If you're new to having a P365, there are two things you need to make sure that are in place. This thing that I was showing you before, right, that has to be lying down. If it's up slightly, then the slide won't go all the way on. So make sure that is down just like that. The other thing is make sure that your takedown lever is completely in the 6 o'clock position. And so how you do that is you push up on this slide lock and then pull down just like that. And now it's in a 6 o'clock position. These two rails right here and here are going to go into here and here. It's going to look something like this. We're going to slide the slide all the way to the rear while pushing up and holding up on the slide lock. Just like that. My takedown lever has automatically gone to the 3 o'clock position. If yours hasn't, just push it over. Next, pull to the rear. And as soon as you hear that click, you can follow the slide forward, and now you are back in business. So the next thing I do is a function test. And so how I do that is I push forward with this hand and pull back with this hand. Just a few times. I aim the gun in a safe direction, pull the trigger, and everything sounds like it's working perfectly. Next, put the empty magazine into your P365, and you are done. Congratulations, guys. You have successfully swapped out your P365 trigger. If you thought this video was useful, please give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Every subscriber helps. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.